Dirk Jong from Boris VFX, and on this system here I have BCC 8 for Motion 5 and Final Cut Pro 10 installed. And we're here in Final Cut Pro 10, and I want to take a quick look at a feature called the Beat Reactor. And that's a feature found in certain BCC effects that allows for taking the sound from an audio file and using it to influence or to drive visual effects parameters. So this shot we have here, young people dancing, I have a music bed underneath, and I'll play it down without any kinds of effects. And then later I have an instance of it where that same shot with a couple of lens flares applied and a title over it, and those are using the Beat Reactor, and then there's some other image treatment effects as well, so you'll see here. See, so I have one lens flare is kind of following one element of the drum, and the other one is following. So one's like the kick drums, one of the other drums, and the title's kind of pulsing to the beat. All right. So how do you begin to do something like that in Final Cut Pro 10? Here I have my BCC effects. I have the BCC lights category highlighted. You see a couple of thumbnails over here that have this audio graph visible there, and one's called BCC Light Rays BR, and the other one's called Lens Flash BR, BR standing for Beat Reactor. And I'm going to drop the Lens Flash BR on this shot, and I'll just put the light source point up over one of these stage lights that we want to affect here. And there's a lot of things you can adjust with these lens flare. There's a lot of lens flare templates in BCC with different looks and different elements. This is the pivot point, and you see these polygons that we have here, I think, are kind of distracting in this effect. So I'm just going to turn down polygon intensity. Otherwise, just going to leave the look as is. Now, because this is a Lens Flash BR, if we scroll down, you see this Enable Beat Reactor checkbox, choose external file, and then the effect on the flare that the Beat Reactor is going to have is that it's going to add to the global scale by default. You can also switch it to intensity there. And what I'm going to do is when the audio is not giving it some scale, I'm just going to have it have no scale. So I'll just turn it all the way down there. So right now we're not seeing any kind of lens flare. And the way this works, I have the audio here in my timeline, but as a video effect in Final Cut Pro 10, there's no way for it to get the audio from the Final Cut Pro timeline, so we need to point our video effect at that audio, as a file on disk. Now, if you didn't already have this as an AIF file on disk, that's the required format, then you would just export it out of Final Cut Pro 10 directly and then reference it. I actually already have mine as an AIF file, so if I enable Beat Reactor, it tells me that I need to click the external file button to select the file. And it's this AIF file. I'll hit open, and you see now that we're beginning to have an audio graph. And you can see that it's already affecting the lens flare. So already you have something that's kind of working here, and the way it works is you see this little white rectangle here. That's kind of the sampling area. So if I play a little bit of this, you see I can kind of detect that is kind of the lower end drum beat, the kick drum there, but I'm going to get this other drum that you see more in the middle, in the orange area, right about there. And so let's target that. And what we do is just move these point controls so that it grabs some of these frequency bars. And you see that the more this rectangle becomes filled, the more this meter is showing up here. So you can see it's almost all the way to the top, it's almost all the way full. And the way it works is, down here in the Beat Reactor, you see scale minimum and scale max. Scale minimum is when this rectangle is not filled at all. What will the value be? And then max, is when it's all the way full. So right now it's set to 3. If I wanted it at its max to be a little smaller, can put it at 2. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, make it 3.5. What else should I show you while we're here in the beat reactor? Fall off time is how long it takes to fall off from that effect. Right now it's set to about 1/3 of a second, 0.3 you see there. Why don't we give it like 0.5 to half a second. And the graph display, see how it says show graph, yes over black or no. So over black is like that. If you just don't want to see the effect, it's kind of getting in the way. At the end, when you're ready to render the effect, usually you're going to turn that off, so that show graph is going to be set to no. And the other thing you can do is, while you're displaying the graph, you can turn down the opacity so you can see through it, which can also be useful as well. Another thing you can do is, grabbing these points, I could scale the graph down to just a specific area of the frame, make it a little smaller if I wanted to get it more out of the way. So we have the area of the frame I think I want. We have the fall off, half a second. If I play this again, actually, why don't I just turn off the graph display now. The playback's a little bit choppy on the unrendered effect on this machine, but I think we kind of have the idea. Now, one other thing that I find useful is this effect delay. If you want it to make it seem like, let's say, the drum hit is kind of causing the light flash, rather than having it be simultaneous, if you delay the effect slightly, let's say 0.1 second, that actually can make a big difference in how how it feels as an effect with the video in relation to audio. So let's just leave that as is now, and I'm going to say render selection. So this is a lens flare effect. It's already 1/4 of the way rendered here. It should go pretty quickly. And why don't I put it on playback quality, high quality, just so that we can get a high quality preview here when we play it. All right, so now that was that. You can see it's fairly simple to get something going using the beat reactor. And in this clip, you can see what I did was I copied that first lens flare I did and I pasted it back on, so I have two lens flashes, and I moved one over here and I made them, I sampled a different area of the graph between them. So 2 different drums that are being played by the drummer. And then finally, we have this effect stack over here, where you see I have a halftone effect doing some scan lines, and using that matting and that, so you see it's not going over over their faces at all. What else do I have here? This title, which I actually built first, and that has, again, the scan lines and a film glow. You can see that I actually rendered it this way because is remembering it there. So this is so that's with the 2 lens flares and the image treatment, and then with the title on top. So we have scan lines. Oh, and I also have a correct selected color, so this makes it so that I've basically desaturated the areas except for the red in the frame, just to kind of give it an interesting look. And so that is a little introduction to using Beat Reactor in BCC 8 for Motion 5 and Final Cut Pro 10.